Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Jack. Back again to bring you Mythic Argus, the healing guide. Everything you need to know about getting Argus down from a healer's perspective, from a healer's point of view here. Starting off, we did go with 4 healers. Some of the first kills went with 3, but at this point, you should be able to get it down no problem with 4 healers, and it's nice to be able to kind of overload a little bit on CDs as you get to the chains, which we'll talk about in a sec. First things first, the fight's going to start off mostly the same. You have 2 big mechanics you're watching out for. You have Sargeras' Rage, which you see as the character on the right who's standing away from everybody. It's a circle with spikes on the ends and little pointy ends to it. If you stand on other people with that debuff, you give them stacks of a dot. Now the other one is Sargeras' Fear. With this, if you do not stand with at least one other person, then you start gaining stacks. So it's very important. It's a nice little circle swirly. Stack with other people. If you have a spiky boy, run away from others. And you'll be getting these periodically throughout the fight, so make sure you're watching your timers and things like that for Sargeras' Gaze, because it's going to periodically be afflicting new people. And it's also going to be putting it on people at very inopportune times, very inopportune moments. So for example, one of the scariest conditions that doesn't happen super frequently, but can happen, is getting the Fear plus Soul Blights as Cone of Death is going to be happening or something like that. So usually we had one of our third tanks floating around, kind of helping escort some people, just that they'd be able to run out the Soul Blights, get them out of the group, and then start running very, very quickly to get out of way of the Cone of Death. So it's very important to kind of keep everybody mostly aligned with each other. So if you're going to be running with other people, it's very, very important just to make sure that you're all, standing further back so that the cone is going to face the same way no matter what. So if you're running far off to the side, you could start messing up some of the cones very, very easily. So keep that in mind as you're going through this. From a disc perspective, biggest thing when you're dealing with these tortured rages, make sure that you're focusing all your healing efforts at times that you're strongest. If you have double powered radiance, using it for those set moments in time. But if you do not have both charges, maybe apply a couple of atonements here or there, because you do have access to a lot of mana, because the fight is not going to last that long until you die and you get full mana again. So you can play very, very aggressively there. But I found personally for me that it was much better to kind of ignore the tortured rages, let the other healers know that you're not doing much healing there, and let them kind of fill in the gaps and fill in the blanks and stuff like that there. But only the tortured rages that you really have a lot of your healing up and available. Same story kind of goes as you enter the second phase. It works basically the same as Heroic, except for the new Sargeras' Gazes that are being added into it. So again, focusing on the moments where you're strongest at, where you're either able to get Velens and Evangelism together, or you're able to get a Light's Wrath off. Those are kind of the big areas that you want to be looking out for, and getting out as many atonements as possible. Getting very big evangelisms, quickly reversing the damage and things like that. Overall, you're just avoiding the scythes that are going to be going out across the room, running at your soul bombs, your soul bursts. A lot of times you will be just stacking on the tank with all of them, and the tank also acts as an escort in case you have any of the debuffs where you got to be standing with other people. Important to note here is we had our Resto Shaman run with Ankh Totem, the Ancestral Protection Totem, and we actually sacrificed one of the healers on the second soul bomb that went out. He just dropped Ankh Totem, and then we just let the healer res from that, and then they ran back before the soul bursts actually ended up detonating. It's a lot easier to do this. We just found it was a lot easier with the tanks. They didn't have to worry about shielding that person with the soul bomb, because they found that it was kind of like a more awkward time. You don't have to run out too far these days with your soul bursts, because you'll have soul bursts and soul bombs, then just soul bursts, then soul bursts and soul bombs again. We found, if in the interest of dealing more and more damage, just to have, if you only have the soul burst going out, have them run to about max melee range. That way they can still add some damage into the boss. It'll make it a little bit easier for you guys to push, and they're not, dealing too much damage to the entire raid group. And at this point, you really can just burn all your mana. Like, by the time you get to 40%, you should be, on your last fumes of mana. You shouldn't really have much left in reserve. And as you're seeing right here, we're at 40.8%. And I'm just kind of standing around with my soul bursts. I end up getting out of the raid at the very last second, but I kind of wanted to see, when we'd be pushing. And as you see, right as I run out my soul bursts, we end up pushing. So right here, we're all dying to the Sargeras' Rage. And the reason that we're doing this, we want to get our potions on cooldown as fast as possible. So as you're seeing, my potion just got incurred with a cooldown. That way we can have people res up, immediately use their pots if they want to, depending on when it's going to really be working best for them here. So you actually have a pretty nice period of time just to relax, get your healing CDs in order, get everything together, because there is quite a bit of RP here. One of the things that I'm going to start going over is the chains that are going to be going out in this fight. So much like on Heroic, you're going to have the orbs in the last phase you have to kill, and if you don't kill them, the circles just get bigger and bigger, and then when they die, they just release a big speck of damage, and then the space is cleared again. On Mythic, the orbs will actually have that little detonation effect, but they will leave the area covered in just void zones, right? And you can't run into it. That area is just permanently covered for the rest of the fight. So what you're going to see here is we're going to go into ANR's phase just like we usually do, and then we're going to get ourselves in position here just to be able to survive the first set of scythes before we move into position to bait out the orb that we have to kill. Now, the orb is going to spawn on ranged and healers, so we have to make sure that we are getting into a good enough position on top of the boss. That way we're not going to be ending up having it, you know, somewhere too far away from melee that there won't be a good area to cleave and things like that. So the red scythes in this phase, you're basically going to be having them cutting across in specific areas. So you see the ones on our right are instantly spinning. That means they're about to be going. And the thing about these is they kind of mesh together, kind of like your fingers might, where if one side is all going to go in first, you have the opportunity to stand in between them. That way you're not going to get hit. But then once those scythes go by, you stand where the scythes just went, because the next set is coming across the room is going to hit you. So if they're spinning, stand outside of them. If you don't see any on your side but you see them on the other side, then you want to stand in the new scythes and then move out when the scythes start spinning there. So as you're seeing, we grouped up there, we got the orbs killed very, very quickly. Now the Sentence of Sargeras, on Mythic originally there was 3 of them that went out, and basically all you had to do was just run out of the raid, and it would start dealing ticking damage for quite a long period of time. They've since changed it since our kill, so now you only get 2 Sentence of Sargeras per issuance, basically. But it didn't really change too much in our strategy. In fact, it just made everything a lot more consistent and a lot easier overall. So the big thing to focus on is when you get those 2 sentences, we used Aura Mastery and My Barrier to be able to kind of group up these cooldowns, because we didn't know if we would accidentally get 3 at some point, so having a very giant cooldown like Aura Mastery helps out a lot. But if you hold on to them, it actually is extremely dangerous. So if you have the 2 sentences that you have these days, and you decide to hold on to them for full duration, it's extremely dangerous, because what will happen is the chains will actually burst at the same time that a Tortured Rage goes off. So it's very, very difficult. And as you're seeing here with the Edge Annihilations, I'm trying to dodge here, trying to watch out for where the sights are coming from, and I see it, you know, both ahead of me and to my right, so I kind of try to feng shui myself and kind of position myself. That way the lines are not going to be hitting me. And it's also kind of an awkward position when you have the Sargeras' Rage, because you want to be close enough to be in range of everybody as a healer, but you also don't want to be blocking anybody's way. So it's very important to kind of start moving ahead of the group here and anticipate everybody else's movements. That way you're going to be able to keep everybody topped off. So I see everybody's in the slink, so I have a little bit of time to just plant my feet and heal, but then I know that they're going to be coming my way to get all grouped up together here. So very important part is basically the first set of chains. Well, the immunities no longer work, so what we ended up doing is originally we used immunities to try to get rid of the second set of chains and then the 4th set of chains whenever possible. And then what we're doing right here is the 3rd set of chains is about to go out, and we're all getting together, we're all grouping together, and we're just going to die right next to the tree. You'll still group up together and die next to the tree here, because again, it just makes it easier. That way the healers are able to come back to life with full mana, and we get just a quick timer. Everyone runs into the tree and res at the exact same time, because the tree is going to disappear almost immediately after. So it's very important. People are going to be quick on the draw and getting back into that. Make sure that you re-up on your augment rune. And it also allows the tank to bait out that orb far to the right side, and then you have a lot of time here, usually about 15 to 20 seconds before any of the chains or before any Sargeras' gazes start coming out, where you can kind of just sit back, relax, heal through Tortured Rages, burn more damage into the bosses. You're seeing I'm around 500k DPS here. I think as a Disc Priest, that's a pretty safe and conservative number to start going for if you're not playing, you know, if you're playing, you know, for Borum or healing, you've got some good relics and stuff like that. You should be able to be around 500k for most of this fight, and doing whatever you can to kind of keep on reinforcing that, because you really, really will need the damage. As you're seeing here, once we had all the fears start going off, we baited the module, the Apocalypse module there, as close to the boss as possible. Again, same story. We want to make sure that we're keeping it close to the boss, and we can start cleaving it all down together. Right here, we got one chain, and again, keep in mind, you're going to get 2 chains every single time now that the boss has kind of changed the mechanics. You can't really immunity through it. So I'm waiting for this Tortured Rage plus the sentence, plus the chains detonating, going off at the same time. And I'm waiting for that moment to drop barrier, because that's probably the moment where people are going to be taking the most damage. And you want to make sure that you're able to kind of stabilize everybody, and it'll depend on the way that you do the strategy. Some people prefer to hold on to the chains for full duration, in which case you need to spend a lot of mana, a lot of focus on getting those targets healed up as best as you can. It's also very important to be spread out whenever you can, because again, these Sargeras' rages can be really bad. You're seeing we have everybody in the raid, or so many people in the raid, getting debuffs because we weren't super well spread out. So it puts even more of a focus on the healers to be able to heal those targets and make sure the targets with the chains are going to be able to survive here. And as you're seeing here, at this point, it's just a straight burn. A lot of debuffs, a lot of dots are ticking up on everybody. Keep the people with the chains alive long enough to actually get the boss down, and it feels amazing. It feels incredible. So thank you so much for watching, guys. If you have any other kind of questions or things like that, be sure to let me know. The big part of this fight is kind of planning out your cooldowns together and making sure that you're doing it as a team. For the healers, like I said, for the first sentence of Sargeras, we used Aura Mastery My Barrier. Then we followed it up with Shaman cooldowns like Slink, and I think he used his own Ascendance or Healing Tide, or both in that instance, to deal with the second chains. Third, we all sacrificed and died in the tree. And then the fourth, we started working with whatever we had next at that point. I believe we had like a Trank available, and I started getting my barrier back available at that point, as well as Aura Mastery. So take advantage of your cooldowns. Don't be afraid to be aggressive with your mana once you start rezzing back to it, because again, you have 2 to 3 minute windows to burn them at 100% of your mana. So it's a lot of time to be able to do tons and tons of healing and play very aggressively. Just keep that in mind as well. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Hope you all enjoyed it. Hope you all found it useful. Catch you all next time.